is up, guys? You are tuned in to the Casual Wrestling Monday Night Raw post show. I am NerdyD, and if you were listening to this, you are part of the CWC, and this is the show where we join together to ask and answer the biggest questions coming out of Monday Night Raw this week. But before we do that, do me a little favor and tap the like button. It only takes 2 seconds and it lets YouTube know you're listening or watching, and it helps grow the Casual Wrestling Army as we continue to chip away at the IWC stronghold over the online wrestling conversation. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. So it's pretty obvious to me at this point, we're on a Monday Night Raw roller coaster of what to expect on a weekly basis coming out of Monday Night Raw. It's so hit and miss lately that I never know what to expect when I sit down to turn on the television and watch 3 hours of wrestling. So I try to start these post shows with the most impactful moment coming out of Monday Night Raw. Kind of hit you with the most important thing I saw. And this week, it really just felt like Raw was sort of on cruise control throughout the whole 3 hours. There were points of Monday Night Raw where I felt like I was actually watching a rerun. We've seen the New Day versus the Viking Raiders in WWE for the last 2 years now in some form or fashion, whether it's on SmackDown, whether it's on Monday Night Raw, whether it's Kofi versus Ivar or Xavier versus Eric, some form or fashion. We've seen that, and we got more of that tonight. So what I had to do was I had to look at my notes from watching Monday Night Raw and figure out, what am I leading the show with? And I think that actually the biggest surprise for me this week on Monday Night Raw was that I absolutely didn't hate the way Nia Jax was booked. Now I'm not ready to crown her the queen of the women's division or my new favorite Monday Night Raw superstar, but I think that the way she's sort of disrupting the normal from what we've seen the last couple of weeks, it's actually a good thing. If WWE actually decides to get behind Nia Jax and book her like a beast, we could get a fun couple of weeks out of Nia Jax in Monday Night Raw. I just have to wonder if this role that Nia Jax is playing wouldn't have been better suited if we waited a couple of weeks for Jade Cargill to be ready and to show up in WWE. Would she not have been a better fit for this position? I think that's a question for another day when we get actual confirmation that Jade Cargill is coming to WWE. But it feels to me that would have been a better shock and a better surprise. But at this point, WWE needs to just take the women's tag team belts and either retire them or relegate them back down to NXT. They are just a pawn for comedy at this point. They're just a way for single superstars to kind of beat up on the people in that division to look strong. They have completely ruined that division with poor booking. Chelsea Green's character has been absolutely buried. After spending weeks to kind of get us to start to get behind her, they've just turned her into a pawn for these heels to step on. And then you have Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark, who you've spent the last couple of weeks convincing me they were viable heels in the women's division, and Nia Jax steps in and just buries both of them. And on top of that, you have Piper Niven, who was supposed to be the one who has the size and the strength to stand up to Nia Jax, and she's being booked on the same level as Chelsea Green and just getting run over by Nia Jax. But I really think that Shayna Baszler is the biggest loser out of all of this. It felt like to me, we were on a path where they were at least trying to build a credible heel out of Shayna Baszler, and now she absolutely looks like a non-factor in the women's division. It is funny to me how quickly things change in WWE. From just a month or two ago, we have Shayna Baszler beating Ronda Rousey, and essentially this torch of being the baddest woman in WWE being passed over to Shayna Baszler. To let's fast forward to now, it looks like Nia Jax and possibly Jade Cargill are going to come into WWE and assume the top heel roles in the women's division. And I won't lie to anybody. Shayna Baszler has to figure out something else to her character instead of just being scary and wrestling, pretty well. A character change or an upgrade to her promo ability is necessary if she wants to take that next step. She's just not interesting. She's not that marketable. She doesn't have that kind of it to be the top heel in the women's division. So I don't blame WWE for changing directions. I think it's kind of funny that we invest time into certain characters and then it's like, oh, Nia Jax, new shiny toy. Just let her run over everybody else and see what happens. So, all right, CWC, I want to get your opinions on some of these other questions I had coming out of Monday Night Raw, starting with if NXT titles are going to be fluid and they're going to move from show to show. We have the women's title on display this week, and we have the North American Championship on display next week on Monday Night Raw. Is it time to remove the brand names from the NXT titles? And I'm not against the NXT titles being defended on different shows. I think that's fine. I did see the IWC kind of, starting to try and stir up a little bit of a tornado of disapproval on the internet, talking about, but they're mad about everything. But they were talking about, Becky Lynch is ruining the NXT women's division. Becky Lynch buried Tiffany Stratton. Come on, guys. Let's be real. Becky Lynch is a star. Tiffany Stratton's a star. Becky Lynch beating Tiffany Stratton just elevates the NXT title to another level. And in a couple of weeks, couple of months, I'm sure that Tiffany Stratton will get her get back. And that title will just be elevated even more when it's time for her to kind of step back into the spotlight. But by no means did Becky Lynch step into NXT and hurt that division. I think for sure Becky Lynch is elevating that title to another level. But here's the problem. We get Becky Lynch coming out on Monday Night Raw talking about defending the NXT Women's Championship, which I'm not mad at, just slightly confused that the person she defends against is none other than break glass in case of emergency Natalya. Someone help me with this idea that if the NXT title is going to be defended on Monday Night Raw, should the challenger for that title not be from NXT? Is it not an opportunity to show the talent that you have on NXT on the bigger platform of Monday Night Raw? I feel like one of two things are necessary if WWE is going to go down this path of actually having NXT titles defended on Monday Night Raw, and that is either A, you always need to have a prominent name from NXT show up to challenge for said title. So that means a Cora Jade, a Roxanne Perez, even Tiffany Stratton coming back. Somebody from NXT should have challenged for that title to elevate the NXT show as a whole. Or B, you're going to have to strip the NXT name off of the titles so that it could just be another women's championship that happens to be defended on NXT, but has the ability to float back and forth. Question: why does the North American title need to be titled the NXT North American Championship? Why can't it just be another title that floats from show to show? I like the idea of NXT stars showing up on Raw randomly to challenge for belts. Definitely keeps Monday Night Raw feeling more fresh, but the NXT title situation is a little bit messy to me. As far as titles go, I think that the NXT titles should become third major titles within the WWE. I think that could work, but here's the problem. I think right now, as far as wrestling companies go, I think WWE has by far the worst title structure in pro wrestling. Right now you have, these are the names of the WWE titles: the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. That's a lot of words. That's a lot of words for a world title. Then you have the World Heavyweight Champion. Then you have the NXT Champion. Here's my reality. I would love to scrap the whole title structure that WWE has right now and rework it with a few extra titles. I would start off with, at the top, one belt named the WWE World Championship. That's Roman's belt. That's the Big Daddy. That is the one that everybody wants. It's the one that gets defended maybe 4 times a year. Then you can play with those long title runs with this belt, and you can really kind of add a prestige to guys who aren't going to be workhorses. After the WWE World Championship, you need a heavyweight division title. This is your workhorse title. This is what Seth Rollins has right now. So not a lot changing here, but let's change the names. WWE World Champion, World Heavyweight Division title. From there, I think that Raw and SmackDown each should have their own SmackDown title and Raw title. Don't call them heavyweight. Don't call them world titles. Just call it the SmackDown division title and the Raw division title. And treat these like your prestigious mid-card championships. Then outside of that, we keep the Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship and we let that float from NXT to Raw to SmackDown to wherever it needs to go. And that is going to be kind of your special appearance title. If you have a guy like Gunther, he can show up on any brand at any time. Then let's get rid of the NXT Men and NXT Women's Championships, and let's move the United States Championship to NXT and make that the NXT World title. The United States Champion. We'll have a United States Men's and a United States Women. The North American title can become the mid-card of the NXT. Keep WWE Tag Team Champions, just one set of belts. Have one set of WWE Women's Champions, which can float between SmackDown, Raw, and NXT. I think you need a WWE Women's Champion, which is, once again, that grand title. I would have a Raw division and a SmackDown Divisions Women's Championship. And then I would have the women's tag team titles. I think that structure works. I could, and like, that's me. That's rough. That's just coming off the top of my head. It would take some work. I could draw a diagram for everybody if it was hard to follow through. But I think instead of just randomly having Becky Lynch show up on Monday Night Raw in a match against Natalya for the NXT title, if you just stripped away the branding from every title in WWE, it would actually make more sense. So, second question of the week here. Did WWE move the needle for anyone on the Seth Rollins and Shinsuke Nakamura storyline? Now, I know a lot of people are into this storyline. I can see it. I can judge it from the Discord. I can judge it from the internet. I can see it. Maybe it's just me. And maybe it's just me that this makes absolutely no sense to. But I don't like, nor do I understand the idea of someone chasing a challenger for your title. It makes Seth Rollins' character feel desperate to me. And maybe it's just the way I'm wired inside of my head, but it feels strange that in this story, Seth Rollins is chasing Shinsuke Nakamura to, hey, you need to re-challenge me for this title after I beat you against all odds at the last Premium Live event. And here's the problem. I think everything involved in this story is perfectly fine except where the title is. If Shinsuke Nakamura would have won the championship at the last Premium Live event, and instead of teasing that he's not going to challenge again, but he's teasing Seth Rollins, hey, if you want to challenge for my belt, we're going to do that on my time, I think this story would be so much more satisfying to me. Because I like the aggression that Shinsuke Nakamura is showing. I thought that the match between Shinsuke and Ricochet, while another rematch, was fine. But question, Shinsuke Nakamura has to come out of this winning the title at this point, right? Because if not, this was all just a major clusterfuck that was a waste of time. You know, all these rematches week in and week out, they're not connecting with me. So ultimately, this has to lead to Shinsuke Nakamura winning the title. We can't go, 2 more months of Seth Rollins limping away every Monday Night Raw because he's beat up and his back hurts, only to show up the following week magically healed and we just do it all over again. This has to be the end of this version of Seth Rollins and the beginning of a new Seth Rollins, and this has to be the beginning of a Shinsuke Nakamura title reign, right? So question 3, is it me? Am I the only person who is so over Cody Rhodes' Super Friends group on Monday Night Raw? How many times is WWE going to go back to this same well of Cody, Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn? This is absolutely the laziest booking I've ever seen with somebody who's projected to be the biggest babyface in WWE in the next couple of years. They are not doing Cody Rhodes any favors with this line of booking. It's weekly, on a weekly basis. Let Cody Rhodes come out, let him beat up on Dominic, have Judgment Day get involved. Oh, here comes the Super Friends. Kevin Owens looks genuinely uninterested in what is going on in WWE. And as much as this pains me to say, and I hardly ever say things like this, but I genuinely believe that Kevin Owens would be happier and be a more successful wrestler if he was in AEW rather than WWE. And that hurts me to say because Kevin Owens is possibly my favorite wrestler, but WWE just has absolutely nothing for him. And they refuse to book him in a way that's actually utilizing his talents and his strengths. I'm praying right now. I'm praying to the wrestling gods. Wrestling gods, please listen to me. That this mistrust that is coming from Kevin Owens towards Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes is a KO heel turn in the making, and we're going to break away from the redundant Super Friends booking that we've gotten for the last 3 months on Monday Night Raw. Everything that KO said on Monday Night Raw felt genuinely true. The Bloodline have cost so many opportunities for other wrestlers over the last year because WWE has this need to protect the Bloodline story arc. Sami Zayn misses out on a world title run. Cody Rhodes misses out on a world title run. Kevin Owens' push was halted, and then he was thrown into this comedic anger management story where now it's spiraled into this uninterested, untrusting version of Kevin Owens who just doesn't look like he wants to be in a WWE ring anymore. Does anybody actually remember when Triple H first took over, when Vince McMahon got in all this shit and he was fired from WWE, how well Kevin Owens was booked for that next 2 or 3 months before Sammy got involved in the Bloodline and they thought, oh, we'll connect KO to that. Kevin Owens was on fire. And unless they figure out some interesting stories for Cody Rhodes, I don't see him with enough momentum to challenge for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 40. But it's clear that The Rock has the itch to continue after jumping on social media and saying that he really enjoyed his appearance on SmackDown. It's obvious he's good to go. If he talked about, the Cody Rhodes and the creative and all of those situations that led to him not being at 39, I think he's politicking for being a part of WrestleMania 40. And if you look at the social media numbers coming from The Rock's appearance, I think it's obvious that Roman versus The Rock is the money match to make. So Cody Rhodes is going to have to make a real case in the next couple of months as to why he gets to finish his story at WrestleMania and not somewhere else down the line, because I could easily see Roman Reigns rolling in and out of WrestleMania 40 against The Rock and just continuing that title reign through 2024. All right, next question. So is WWE playing up this Dom's jealousy for Rhea Ripley and Jey Uso, or was this just something that Cody Rhodes kind of, riffed off the cuff? I started to think about this angle after I heard Cody say it, and I like the possibilities of where it could go, seeing Rhea Ripley kind of get infatuated with the idea of Jey Uso joining the Judgment Day to a point where she almost starts to ignore Dom a little bit. It could lead to a fun feud between Jey and Dom. The only real problem that I see with this is I don't know that there's a real reason to split up Dominic Mysterio and Rhea Ripley at this point. They work extremely well as a pair, and I don't think the payoff would be worth the couple of weeks of story and entertainment you get out of doing an angle like this. Dom is going to flounder once he's pulled out of this Rhea Ripley storyline. He is not going to survive on his own WWE main roster without a rebranding. So something's going to have to happen. He is 100% connected to Rhea Ripley right now, and that is the source of his success. Now, I think they easily could tease this. You could touch on it a little bit, but ultimately, if they go this route, I think that it should end up building like a stronger bond between Dom and Rhea. I'm still so scared right now that when we watch Monday Night Raw and we watch what's happening with Jey Uso, that he's just being dragged into a Super Friends storyline. It scares me so much that maybe Kevin Owens is on his way out, but Jey Uso's on his way in. And what scares me absolutely the most is that WWE is literally considering doing the Ultimate Super Friends Survivor Series with the Judgment Day versus Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Cody Rhodes, and Jey Uso. I'm just hoping we don't get that. All right, so last question of the week here. Is Chad Gable's push officially over? You guys remember when I said last week that Chad Gable was going to have to earn his way back to the IC title. Then we saw Chad Gable approach Adam Pearce, and Adam Pearce mirrored my sentiment 100%. Said, hey, Gable, you want back in? You're going to have to get to the back of the line and earn your way back. And I thought, okay, cool. That's the plan. That's where they're going. Looks like that's not the plan. And what it looks like to me right now is there's a power struggle in the booking department. It feels like there's multiple people kind of fighting over the direction of the mid-card right now within the WWE. And I wish that Vince McMahon would just take Monday Night Raw and Triple H would take SmackDown, and we really got to see where things would go, seeing the two contrasting styles of booking. But it's confusing to me. You spend so much time building up somebody like Gable only to have them get run over by Bronson Reed, who himself was on a major push before getting derailed and getting smacked around the last couple of weeks. So much start and stop booking in WWE, it's hard to really get behind somebody long term. There is no clear direction for a lot of these mid-card superstars. Sometimes, to me, it feels like WWE is just absolutely numb to what the audience wants. Now, it looks like instead of Gable, it's going to be Ciampa that gets the next shot at Gunther. And I'm fine with that. I just don't know from a commercial marketability, viable challenger standpoint that Ciampa is the better choice than doing another Gable match. I think WWE is missing out on not taking Ciampa and inserting him into a group with Gargano and Lumis and having them go against the Imperium as a group. What is WWE's objection to recreating the NXT The Way faction 2.0 with Ciampa, Gargano, Lumis, Indy Hartwell, and Candice LeRae? I don't get it. Like, why? What is this infatuation with keeping these? Nobody in that group is doing anything right now. Why not bring them together and let them have some sort of storyline, especially with kind of the goofiness that they present could be the ultimate thing that Gunther resents in a wrestling faction, and it would make for a great story. So right now, I'll take a wait and see approach to the Intercontinental Championship, but I told you guys last week, I viewed that as the major title on Monday Night Raw, but after this week, things are a little murky with Bronson Reed. You now have Chad Gable ultimately looking like he's out of the picture. Bronson Reed probably back into the picture, and Tommaso Ciampa kind of going off on his own against Imperium. We'll see where that goes. All right, so let's get into some news that you might have missed over the weekend. CM Punk not expected to pursue legal action against AEW. I think this is a sign that he wants a clean break from the company. I think at least in CM Punk's mind, that he is going to try his best to get another run inside of WWE, and I think that WWE is not even going to touch him if he's involved in a bunch of legal work with AEW. I imagine that WWE knows the numbers that CM Punk can produce, and given the right creative and a very short leash, I think that WWE is probably considering that there's not a lot of downside to bringing him back for at least a short-term run. Now, I know there's opposition from people within WWE who don't like CM Punk, especially I think Seth Rollins is one of those people. But if you're a smart, business-minded person, you have to look at what WrestleMania 40 could be in terms of how that card could play out, and especially coming off of the kind of the embarrassment of Wembley for AEW, in that, not that the card was embarrassing, but that they go, this is the biggest show of all time, and now the numbers are coming back, and maybe it wasn't. I think WWE could really make a statement by putting together this major card that does do, you know, that record number. And if you look, you have the possibility to do a match like Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair versus Bianca. You could put Jade Cargill somewhere on that card. You could do Cody Rhodes. You can still try to entice MJF and bring him over. You could do Seth Rollins versus CM Punk, Roman versus The Rock. You got LA Knight on that card. There's potential for WrestleMania 40 to be, at least on paper, one of the greatest WrestleManias of all time. The Rock was blown away by the reaction he got and the huge numbers that he saw on social media for his appearance on SmackDown. Like I said earlier, I think you can pretty much guarantee at this point that The Rock is going to be lobbying for a WrestleMania 40 match, especially if the Hollywood strike is predicted to run through next year. I think he's got the itch. I think he's ready to go. I think movies are great, but I think there's just something for these guys that to get in that ring and get an immediate reaction from 80,000 plus people just losing their shit screaming your name. There's got to be kind of an ego hit you get from that. I think Roman Reigns works the right pace of match for somebody like The Rock. So I think The Rock kind of remembers what it's like now to get inside that ring. I think that The Rock has probably looked at this and goes, I remember what Hogan did for me, and I know I could be the Hogan to Roman Reigns at this point. And I think that we could be seeing the seeds laid out for a head of the table storyline at WrestleMania. And the last story of the week here, Jade Cargill is officially been removed from the AEW, has been officially removed from the AEW roster. I think it's pretty official. Jade's showing up in WWE, and it's going to be in the near future. I read that she had a little bit of a send-off in the AEW locker room after her last match. I still think, I'm still going to say, guys, this will be a litmus test for everybody else in AEW who is on the fence about what's going on in AEW. I think if Jade Cargill jumps ship and finds quick success, I would expect the floodgates to just open up and a bunch of dominoes to fall. And I think the one that you keep your eye on the most is going to be MJF. I think if MJF sees Jade Cargill make a smooth transition from AEW to WWE, I think he takes serious consideration about jumping ship in January of 2024. Let's give out some awards this week. Superstar of the night, I'm going to give it to Ivar. I think that backflip finisher off the top ropes was the most impressive thing I saw on Monday Night Raw this week. Match of the night, I liked Kofi versus Ivar the best, so I'll give them some love, show some love to the undercard this week. The Raw score, I had Cody versus Dom at a 2 out of 5. I had Cody versus Dom at a 2 out of 5. Kofi versus Ivar at a 3.5 out of 5. Shinsuke versus Ricochet, 3 out of 5. Piper, Chelsea, Zoe, Shayna, 3 out of 5. Gable and Bronson Reed, 3 out of 5. Becky and Natalya, 2 out of 5. Vinci and Ciampa, 3 out of 5. And Drew and Jey Uso, 3 out of 5. That gives me a total score of 2.8 on the casual scale, deeming this a bad Monday Night Raw. I feel like in the grand scheme of things, this was a bad Monday Night Raw. I think that it was stagnant. I think it was a lot of rematches. I don't think it made much story progression. It had inconsistent booking. I think in terms of what we've seen the last couple of weeks, this felt bad, especially coming off of a SmackDown that was so good. This episode of Monday Night Raw just wasn't for me. And that's all I have for this week. Make sure to watch the Casual Wrestling Podcast every Wednesday night, the Champ and the Chick that post every Sunday night, the SmackDown post show every Friday night. Hit the like button, share the episode with somebody you know. Casual Wrestling merch is now available on the new casualwrestling.com. Check that out. And until next time, keep it casual, my friends. I'm tapping out.
Step in the ring, if you ready, let's go. Ay, Casual Wrestling Community Show. You already know, talking WWE. Keep it rolling and hosted by Notorious NerdyD. Dope a show that you gon' find. Tune in cause it's online. Hit 'em with a figure 4 leg lock, power driver or clothesline. We bringing that heat like for show.